Hey, good morning. Today we're going to do a quick review of proportions, and we're going to learn a little bit more about how to solve them a little bit differently than we've been doing. So first of all, what is a proportion? A proportion is a term used when there are two equal ratios. We've been doing this. Okay, so we might have the ratio 2 to 1, and of course we know that's going to be equal to 4 to 2. Okay, proportions can be used to solve for missing pieces of information, and we're going to learn how to do that today. Okay, so there are three ways to solve proportions. Okay, first is unit rate, which we've been doing. We spent on most of our last unit using unit rates. The second way is by using a method called scaling, and the third way is cross multiplication, which I've shown you that one also. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so using unit rates, first we're going to find the unit rate. Then we use that unit rate to either multiply, okay, or divide, depending on what we're missing. So let's talk about when we're going to multiply. I'm going to take a multiply when I'm looking for my numerator. Okay, I'm going to divide when I'm looking for my denominator. Okay, so here's our first example. We've got 200 to 20 is equal to x over 15 hours. So $200 to 20 hours. That's the first thing we're going to do is find our unit rate. So we're going to take 200 and divide it by 20. That's going to give us $10 per hour. Okay, it's asking us to find how much money, okay, so we're trying to find x up here. How much money are we going to make in 15 hours? It just told you if we're looking for the numerator, which is this, we're going to multiply. So I'm going to take 10 and multiply it by 15 hours. Okay, so $10 multiplied by 15 hours, which is going to give us $150. So x is $150. Okay, here's our next example. 180 miles in 3 hours is equal to 270 miles, and we're trying to find how many hours we can travel 270 miles. So first thing, 180 divided by 3, that gives us 60 miles per hour. Okay, I told you if we're looking for the denominator, we're going to take and divide. So I'm going to take 270. Why I always did that? Let's try that again. 270. We're going to divide that by our 60 miles per hour. Okay, so 270 divided by 60 gives us 4.5. Okay, so we can travel that in 4.5 hours. All right, here's our next example. 92 miles per 4 gallons. We're trying to find out how many miles in 7. Okay, so of course, first thing we're going to do is take and divide 92 by 4. 92 divided by 4 is 23. Okay, so 23 miles per gallon. Okay, and again, we're looking for the numerator, so we're multiplying. So 23 times 7 gives me 161 miles. Okay. Here's our next way that we can solve problems with proportions. We can either scale up or we can scale down. And scaling up means we're multiplying the numerator and the denominator by the same number. Scaling down means we're dividing by the same number. Okay? And don't forget, whatever you do to one, you have to do to the other. Okay, so here's our first example. 80 miles in 2 hours is equal to how many miles per 4? I know that I can take and multiply 2 times 2 to get 4. whatever I do to my denominator, I then have to take and do to my numerator. So 80 times 2 gives me 160 miles. Okay, have to do the same thing to both. Here's another example. Okay, I know 7 times 4 gives me 28, so I know 70 times 4 is going to be 280. So multiplying times 4, have to do the same thing to my denominator. So 1 times 4 gives me 4 pairs of shoes. Okay? And now we have another example, $800 to 80 hours. We're trying to find out how much money for 40. Okay, I can tell 80 is being divided by 2 to give me 40, which means I have to do 800 divided by 2, which is going to give me $400. Okay, scaling up and scaling down only works best when it is an even number or a whole number that you're working with, something you can quickly see. Okay, so cross multiplication, we're going to use this method by multiplying the numerator of one of our ratios by the denominator of the other. You have to have numbers there for it to work. Once we've multiplied, then we take that answer and divide it by the number that's left in our problem. Okay, so let's talk about how we do that. This is our example, 375 miles in 7.5 hours is equal to X miles in 4 hours. Okay, so I look for the 2 that I have. Okay, right here we've got a numerator and a denominator across from each other that both have a number. I cannot use this one because it's an X. There's not a number there. So I'm going to take 375 and multiply it by 4. Okay, once I take 375 and multiply it by 4, I'm going to take that answer and divide it by 7.5. Okay, so 375 times 4 gives me 1,500 divided by the 7.5. I get 200 miles to travel 4 hours. Okay, here's our next example. We've got $72 in 12 hours, and we're trying to find out how much for $48 in how many hours. Okay, again, I have to make sure that they're across from each other. I can't use this one this time because there's not a number there. Okay, so I have to take and find 2 that are across from each other. So these 2 are, so we can multiply those. So 48 times 12, and then I take that entire product and I'm going to divide it by 72. Okay, we have to do it one step at a time. So 48 times 12, 48 times 12 gives me 576, I'm going to divide by 72. And that gives me 8. Okay, so my X here is 8 hours. Okay, let's look at another one. $60 for 3 lawns is equal to how many dollars for 5? Okay, again, I cannot use the one that has the X, so I can't go across that way. So I'm going to use these 2. Okay, so 60 times 5 divided by 3. Okay, 60 times 5 is 300. 300 divided by 3 is $100 for 5 lawns. Okay, let's look at another example. Let's skip over that one. Okay, Jude played a quiz game in which he answered 15 questions and he got 3 incorrect. At this rate, how many questions should he expect to answer correctly if he answers a total of 405? So first of all, telling us he answered 15 and he got 3 incorrect, but the question's trying to find out how many are correct. So we're not going to use this 3. These are incorrect. So I'm going to take 15, subtract 3, and that gives me the 12 correct answers. Okay, that's what I'm going to use when I set this up. So I'm going to do mine total to correct. So I'm going to have 15 total questions to 12 correct, and that's going to equal a total of 405 questions. And here I'm trying to find how many are correct out of that. Okay, my first method that I'm telling you to use is unit rate. So I'm going to take 15 and divide by 12. 15 divided by 12, and that gives me 1 1/4. Okay, remember when we're trying to find the denominator, we divide. So I'm going to take 405 and divide by 1 1/4. 405 divided by 1.25, and I get 324. Okay, 324 correct responses. Okay, let's try it a second way. Same numbers. We're still looking for the same thing. It's not as easy for us to find what we're multiplying by. So I'm just going to take and divide 405 by 15, and I get 27. So I know I'm multiplying by 27. So then I'm just going to take 12 and multiply by 27, and I get 324 correct. We got the same thing, which we should. We should get the same answer no matter which method we try. Okay, and here's our last way. Same problem, 15 to 12, 405 over x. Okay, we're going to cross multiply first. So these two numbers. So 405 times 12. Take that product, divide by 15. So 405. 405 times 12 gives me 4,860 divided by 15. We get 324 again. Okay. So you guys, the problems that are left on this worksheet, I want for you guys to finish yourself. And then I'm also going to assign you guys your class assignment for today. If you have any questions, just send me an email, or I'm available in Zoom after 2:10, from 2:10 to about 2:30. So just let me know if you do have questions, okay? I'll see you later.